Greetings builders, Daniel here and welcome to another meta builds video. Today I'm gonna show you 3 builds that are among the most played in the second week of the Tribe of the Ancestors League. If you decide to make any of those, you can find links for POBs and complete guides in the video description. Now, let's take a look at them. The first skill we're gonna see today is being played by over 8% of high level players. It's the Flaming Hot Righteous Fire. Here you can use all the tankness and life regeneration from Juggernaut to easily sustain the Righteous Fire damage and just walk your way through the end game. To list the pros of this build, I would start with how comfortable and smooth this gameplay is. As soon as you get this build sustaining Righteous Fire, you start clearing maps without even noticing. This character is also super tanky and will be hard to die even if you try to. Now, to list the cons, I would start saying that the boss damage isn't great. But don't worry, you kill map bosses easily even on a low budget. But Guardians and Pinnacle bosses will take longer than usual if you don't invest some Divine Orbs. Another issue is that the leveling is a little bit complicated since we use a spell as a Marauder, but if you follow closely the steps from the leveling section on the complete guide, you won't have a problem. As for budget, you can get it destroying early endgame maps with only around 105 chaos, but if you follow the crafting tips on the complete guide, this can get a lot cheaper. To comfortably advance to yellow maps, you need to invest around 150 chaos, and for easily completing your Atlas, I recommend investing around 4 divines, mostly on your survivability. Don't forget that on PoEbuilds.net you can find a list with all the equipment that you need to buy for this build, with direct links for examples being sold by other players. You need 2 mandatory unique items for this build. The first are the Legacy of Fury boots. They escort nearby enemies and cause them to explode for an amazing clear speed. Those boots might be a little bit expensive during the first days of a new league, but don't worry, you'll be fine playing without them until the price drops. The other mandatory unique is the Immortal Flash belt. This one grants a huge amount of life regeneration and even a great armor buff. For clear speed, I'll give this build 10 out of 10. As mentioned before, as soon as this build is complete, you just walk and watch every enemy burn just because of your presence. This means not stopping for casting and saving a lot of time while farming. The boss damage on the other hand is not that great. I would give it just 7 out of 10 because it will need investment to deal a decent DPS on Pinnacle bosses and Guardians, but this build still can kill map bosses easily even on a low budget. For the survivability, this build is surely a 10 out of 10. As you can see on the POB, this build gets over 100,000 armor, 2000 life regeneration per second, over 87% of all elemental resistance and even over 50% chance to block spell damage. Even if you try to die, it wouldn't be easy. Next, we have a skill chosen by over 5% of high level players, the powerful and shocking Spark. Spark is an erratic lightning skill that runs on the floor, killing every living thing that has the misfortune of crossing its way. To list the pros of this build, I would start with how simple and easy it is to play it. You don't need to aim or anything, just cast the Spark and they will run on their own and get the job done. This build also only needs 1 mandatory unique item and counts with great boss damage and survivability. Now, to list the cons, I would point that the clear speed is not very smooth because you end up having to cast Spark many times. It's almost like a Raging Spirits build. Another issue would be the lack of evasion and spell suppression, but don't worry, we have many other defensive layers here. As for budget, you can get it destroying early endgame maps with only around 85 chaos. To comfortably advance to yellow maps, you need to invest around 120 chaos, and for easily completing your Atlas, I recommend investing around 4 divines. You only need 1 mandatory unique item for this build, the Call of the Brotherhood ring that converts 40% of lightning damage into cold damage. This is great because we freeze enemies for more survivability and we use Herald of Ice for more clear speed. For clear speed, I would give it 8 out of 10. Spark projectiles have a long duration and pierce enemies, so after you cast them they go through a long distance killing many of them. But since you can't control their path, you end up having to cast Spark many times, and that might slow you down a little. The boss damage is great and deserves 9 out of 10, especially when you find yourself in a closed arena where the Spark projectiles can hit a target many times. For the survivability, I'll give it 9 out of 10. This build counts with an amazing regeneration, huge life plus energy shield pool, high armor and block chance. This can be even better if you invest a few Chaos Orbs buying a replica Soul Terror belt for the Corrupted Soul. Finally, we have another popular skill, the classic and amazing Spin to Win Cyclone. This build turns you into a walking blender with a huge area of effect, damage, speed and instant reach. To list the pros of this build, I would start with its clear speed. It's just amazing to be always moving and massacring all the poor enemies on the way. The boss damage is also amazing. Once the build is done, you are going to kill even the big bosses in just seconds. Above all of that, this build is also very simple to put together. It doesn't need any mandatory unique item. Now, to list the cons, I would point a few important issues and I'd like to ask you to pay close attention here. You see, this build has a great survivability once it's done, but when you're leveling your character you need to pace your progression, because you're always very close to enemies. If you're not prepared, you are going to die. So take the extra time to pick up a few more levels before progressing to a high tier content. Another useful tip about your survivability is how to deal with stuns. On this build, you get stun immunity with cluster duels, but not everyone can afford them right away. If that's your case, or if you're just having problems with stuns sooner, do this simple trick of picking those evasion nodes and this mastery. Believe me, it helps a lot. As for budget, you can get it destroying early endgame maps with only around 90 chaos. To comfortable advanced 2 yellow maps, I recommend investing around 150 chaos, and for easily completing your atlas, I recommend investing around 6 divines. For clear speed, I'll give it 10 out of 10. Cyclone never stops moving, so you can farm your maps without needing to stop for casting or anything like that. It's just awesome and very satisfying. The boss damage is great and deserves 9 out of 10. Prepare yourself to destroy even the biggest bosses in just a few seconds. Now for the survivability, I'd only give it 8 out of 10, but don't get me wrong, this build still has over 70,000 effective HP because of high armor, evasion, spell suppression and instant reach. I just took 2 points out because you're always very close to enemies, which puts you in a vulnerable position. And that's it for today guys, are you playing any of those meta builds? Please don't forget to tell me in the comments and leave a thumbs up to support the channel. I wish you guys an amazing day and don't forget to keep building!